Hello, it's Tom Donald from the London Contemporary School of Piano, and today I'm going to show you how to play modes on the piano. All you need to know to play modes on the piano and find them on the instrument. Modes can be a source of confusion to so many students. What's the difference between a mode and a scale? Where do they come from? When are they used? And what does all this Greek terminology mean? When all of these Greek words get thrown around with modes, people just get so confused. But the good news is, with the piano, it's designed in a very particular way for us to play scales and find scales and modes in quite a straightforward manner. So I look forward to showing you this. Modes actually go back for centuries in music, and they were used in early music from Gregorian chant to music from all cultures around the world. And modes was firstly explored with the human voice. These scales almost hold the ancient DNA of music. And there's something really exciting about that, because modes and these combinations of notes are still used in popular music today. And if you like our work at the London Contemporary School of Piano, there's two things you should do. You should click the subscribe button first so you know about our new content when it gets released. But most importantly, if you're really serious about your piano journey, why don't you head on over to our website, contemporaryschoolofpiano.com, and ask for our free pack of resources, which covers a whole wide range of music. We're very generous with the material that we share to the world because we want you to go on the best possible musical journey to see you develop and grow as a musician. And for some of you that really want some world-class piano coaching, you can also get in touch with us to find out about that. So let's start with these modes. First thing, I'm going to show you the easiest way to find modes on the piano and how you can quickly start using them straight away. Now, the piano's design is very much major scale centric. So let's take an easy, trusty C major scale, and we're going to find a whole bunch of modes on a C major scale. So the C major scale could actually be described as an Ionian mode, if you want to speak some Greek. Let's now go through the C major scale and look at all of the different modes that sit inside the scale. So for instance, if I played a C major scale starting on a D, I would get this mode, the D Dorian mode. It sort of has an Elizabethan feel to it, this one. I think of songs like Scarborough Fair when I hear the Dorian mode. So to find any Dorian mode in any key, you can simply find a major key and start on its second note, and you're on a Dorian mode. So now let's go to the third note. This is a Phrygian mode. It has quite a dissonant sound to it. It's amazing to think it's related to a C major scale. It has the same notes, but we're starting on the E. That means the E is the root note. And you'll hear how this scale, the Phrygian mode, starts on a semitone. Beautiful sounding scale. Very dramatic when it's used in particular ways. In Gregorian chant, this mode often really captures a feeling of longing or a feeling of slight darkness and mourning. It has a very dramatic tone to it when used in particular ways. So that's the Phrygian mode. Now we're going to go to the fourth note of the scale, which is the Lydian mode, F Lydian. I think the F Lydian has a really dreamy tone to it, and you often hear it in a lot of soundtrack music and film scores. Sort of has that sense of dreaminess to it. It's quite imaginative. And then we have the fifth note of the C major scale, a G, and that turns into a G Mixolydian mode. The Mixolydian mode is quite uplifting, almost anthem-esque. But what's interesting about the Mixolydian mode is that, unlike a typical major scale, a typical sort of classical major scale finishes on a semitone, but a Mixolydian mode finishes on a tone. And that's what gives it its unique flavour. A lot of rock music is based on Mixolydian modes because it has that real driving effect that's useful for rock. So now we go to the sixth note of the scale, which is often referred to as the natural minor, but you can also call it an Aeolian mode. It's actually the relative minor of C major. All of these modes are related to C major when you see it from the perspective of a piano. But actually, if you want to know what came first, the chicken or the egg, the modes came well before these major scales that we see on the piano. It's just that the major scale is a really useful way to pick up all these modes on the piano design. So then, that leaves us with one more mode here. And that's the B Locrian mode. And again, just like the Phrygian mode, it's quite dissonant. This one's even more dissonant because it has a tritone in it, a B to an F. And of course, there are other modes, but they're the ones you want to start with, because if you know your major scales, you can walk through those major scales and play them in different positions to find these modes. So let me demonstrate it in a few other keys so we're not just thinking in C major. So for instance, what about D major? This is our D major scale. So if I start on its second note, this is a Dorian on E, a Phrygian on F sharp, a Lydian on G, I'll do that one again, a Mixolydian on A, a natural minor on B, an Aeolian, and a Locrian on C sharp. And I could do this in other keys like, let's say, F major. So here's our F major scale, our G Dorian mode, our A Phrygian mode, our B flat Lydian mode, C Mixolydian, D natural minor or D Aeolian, E Locrian, and so forth. So that's a very simple and straightforward gateway to the modes on the piano. But now I'm going to show you another way you can find modes on the piano that's a little bit more direct and involves less counting around a major scale. And again, the piano is filled with so many lovely relationships between the notes. There's so many different ways we can find the same scales. So whatever suits your learning style is the most important thing. There's no right or wrong way to do this. So let's go back to C major. We can also find modes by just simply adjusting the notes in a given major scale. So we were talking about the Mixolydian mode, and the Mixolydian mode is basically a major scale with a flattened seventh. So we get this. There's the C Mixolydian mode. And also, let's use the Dorian as an example. We can flatten the third and the seventh, and we get a Dorian mode. In this case, a C Dorian mode. And yes, the C Dorian mode is related to the B flat major scale, but that just was another way of finding the scale by flattening the third and the seventh from a C major. What about a C Lydian mode? Well, in this case, I'm going to sharpen the fourth note, and I have a Lydian. So again, if you head on over to our website, contemporaryschoolofpiano.com, on our resources pack that we provide for all of our YouTube fans across the world, we have a sheet called Getting Into the Groove. And on that sheet, you have the formula behind these modes. So you can start jamming on them straight away, and it makes a really useful practice resource. So let's continue now building some music from these modes. Let's play with them to make some beautiful music, because that's what it's all about. I'm going to show you some tricks I like to use when I play with modes as well. So, for instance, we can think of this in chords. We can actually create chord progressions through modes. So let's go to the Lydian mode that we were talking about a little bit earlier here. So the Lydian mode has an F sharp in it. It has that sharpened fourth, and you could say it's related to the G major scale as well. So I'm going to use chords like C major and D major. But one thing I'm not going to do, I'm not just going to resolve to a G major, because then that C Lydian mode will simply just collapse into a G major scale. And we want to leave it hanging. We don't want it to just collapse into its related major scale. We want it to leave it hanging like a mode. And that's really the ultimate difference between modes and scales. Modes, in a sense, predate scales. And when major scales showed up in Western music, the whole system sort of collapsed into this major-minor paradigm. But with modes, you can sort of sit inside a scale without resolving it back to its relative major. That's one way of looking at it anyway. So I'm going to use chords, lots of chords like C major and D major. And now I'll improvise on the C Lydian, and let's see what effects I can make. And it's just lovely how that dreaminess of this mode leaves the music hanging. The last thing I want to do is go to G major, and that's just cheesy, isn't it? So I just keep it hanging on the C major and the D major chords, improvising in this mode. And if I want a bit more variation, if it's starting to sound just a little bit old-fashioned, like just stuck in the mode and I want to move somewhere else, well, I could transpose to another mode. I could go to the B flat Lydian mode, which again is derived on the piano from an F major scale, but I won't resolve it to F major. I'll use chords like B flat and C. So now I'm on the B flat Lydian. Now I might go back to the C Lydian. Now the B flat Lydian. Back to the C Lydian. Back to the B flat Lydian. So actually just combining a few together can create really lovely contemporary effects with this beautiful ancient scales. Let's try another one. Let's play around with the C, let's say the C Dorian mode. So we can think of a chord progression that might suit that well. It might be C minor, B flat major, and F major. Let me create a Dorian improvisation over that. And if you're looking for a further edge, the Dorian mode, this is just a bit of a nice pro tip, the Dorian mode combines beautifully with the blues scale. So I'll put a bit of C minor blues scale in with that. If you need to watch our blues videos to get a bit to get up to scratch with your blues, just check out our YouTube channel for that. So I'm going to now combine some C Dorian with C blues. So that's quite a fun combination to put the two together. Now let's finish with the C Mixolydian mode. And the Mixolydian mode, I mean, it's just classic. I mean, you hear it in Gregorian chant all the way through to Radiohead, and it's just there's something uplifting about it because you don't have that classical semitone at the top of the major scale. It's still major until you get to the seventh note. We flatten it. You have a minor seventh interval inside the scale. There's just something uplifting about it. So this lends well to chord progressions like C major, B flat major, F major, C major. So I hope this video taught you a thing or two about modes. I'm such a nerd for modes, by the way, and I'm so passionate about ancient music that recently I recorded an album with monks who practice Gregorian chant up in Scotland at Pliscarden Abbey. It is one of the remaining monasteries in the UK that still practices plain chant and Gregorian chant in Latin in the Benedictine tradition, singing 7 times a day and waking up at 4:30 in the morning to express music and prayer through modes. I mean, that is the ultimate definition of musical satisfaction, to explore music. And I had this incredible honor and opportunity to play piano with the monks of Pliscarden Abbey. With their permission, they let me move into their creative space and their space of reflection and prayer for 2 days, where we recorded a bunch of tracks. And if you'd like to hear some of that album, you can head over to my Bandcamp page and support this project and have a listen to some of the tracks where you can stream them. And if you'd like to know more about the project, I'm just going to drop a bit more information about my modal Gregorian chant journey that I've been taking for the last few years. And I hope you've got some really interesting ideas now to take into your piano playing with modes. Modes are ancient, they're contemporary, they're a hybrid of centuries all put together. And isn't it wonderful to be able to just express that on the piano? You've got to remember, when you play a keyboard instrument like the piano, that so many musical decisions have been made for us over centuries and centuries to enable us to have this finished product here that is so beautifully designed. I know so many of you look at the piano and you get intimidated by its, so-called complexity, but that's just our education system making things more complex than they need to be. Do you know, every time you sit down at a keyboard, centuries of battles, musical battles, have literally been won so we can sit there, play a major scale on the white keys, change it to a different position starting on a D, E, F, G, and we have all of these incredible scales, this DNA of music that goes back for centuries just under our fingers like that. We really are so lucky, so privileged to be alive today, to be able to have a digital keyboard or a piano or any of this technology in our music to just sit down and play and jam and share ideas together. So take that thought with you, and I look forward to seeing you soon. And here's a bit more information on my musical journey with modes and Gregorian chant. I am on a mission to travel across millennia and find the original DNA of Western music. In the remote wilderness of Scotland, at the home of the Benedictine monks of Pliscarden Abbey, the remaining community in the British Isles to practice Latin plain chant. My time machine, a piano, finally reconnecting with its ancestors in a jam session across millennia. This is not just a musical and spiritual journey. This is time travel itself. This project at Pliscarden Abbey is the realization of a lifelong dream I've had to travel through musical centuries on the piano and to look for the DNA strands of Western music that has developed in all of the music that we hear, love and listen to today. Please support this vital work and research as well as artistry that we are currently undertaking. This project is entirely independently funded, and your help and support in us developing this unique and transcendental musical message is really appreciated. So if you just head over to my Bandcamp site, where you can hear a pre-release version of this album and donate towards this wonderful project. It would be much appreciated. Many thanks.